Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB Pro Classic Physique athlete. Today's guest is Rob Van Sant. Rob, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Quinn. Again, thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, man. So super excited to chop it up with you. You're less than 2 weeks out in terms of your pro debut, which we're gonna get into that. So I know food's probably a little bit low, cardio's probably a little bit higher, and we're kind of at the finish line. But thank you for taking some time to chop it up with myself and all the podcast listeners and followers. So Rob, tell us, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Okay. For the purpose of just having like an actual impact on me, I like it to be a little bit more sentimental with that. So as cheesy as it sounds, first and foremost has to be my coach, Vinny Galanti. Masters Pro, Masters Muscle, competing since '84, I believe. The impact he's had, relative to bodybuilding, but just outside into my life in general, has just been like hard to put into words, to be honest with you. And I don't know that I've ever really expressed that to him appropriately. Certainly he has an understanding of it, but I'm kind of reserved in my words, so to say, and maybe a little soft-spoken perhaps, but he's standing first in line when you talk about favorite bodybuilders. After that, it's a lot of the guys who I listen to on the podcast. So like Fuad Abiyad, his crew, people that I can actually sit there, dedicate time to get an understanding of, listen to them, feel related, feel like these are guys that get it, listen to them based on their experiences. They keep it real, they keep it honest. So I appreciate that aspect. And then similarly with Dusty Hanshaw, Ron Partlow, Scott McNally, these guys, all the same deal. Like, I get to know them for who they actually are, or at least more so than just what you see on stage, similar to the theme of your podcast, Behind the Muscle. And then two other guys I'll mention kind of quick is Lee Priest. Similarly, he's a very humble guy. He can be a little crazy at times, but he keeps it honest, he keeps it real. And then a newest addition who's actually inspired me to kind of reach out in regards to podcasts is Physique. I was listening to a podcast he did about a year ago with John Romano and Rich Gasperi. And I can't quote it properly, but ultimately he just drove home the point that he wasn't getting magazine covers, he wasn't getting opportunities until he, he made the move and he reached out. And that sounds like the most no-brainer thing in the world, right? Like you think that, but like, I don't know. I kept making excuses. I kept overthinking things. But with how everything's been going on, it's just, he was the right guy, I guess I had to hear it from. So I owe that to him, certainly. Kind of anything to all these guys.
Very cool. Now I'm curious, who are some of the guys on the current IFBB circuit? I know Sadiq is active, but are there any other active IFBB pros, whether that's open, 212, whatever category you want to pick, classic, that you kind of respect, you kind of look up to them, they kind of challenge you, inspire you, what have you? Maybe it's just through social media, or maybe you've met them in person, but are there any current guys that you really look up to?
With a great respect, I can go back and mention, Nick Walker. He is part of the podcast. So as far as active guys, he's somebody I'm a little bit more familiar with as far as their personality. From just a visual standpoint and what they've done. I know he hasn't performed the best recently, but I was at the New York Pro the other day, and when I saw Justin Rodriguez come out, oh my God. The dude's insane. Like, as far as like what he looks like physically, I was blown away by that. And then actually, I apologize, Steven, you just had him on your podcast.
Oh, Ditto Shack.
Yeah. I was listening to that podcast, and just his personality came off very relatable. Quiet. Just seems like a genuine guy. Real cool, rather successful, far and beyond achieved more than I ever could, but that's what I respect about it, of course, and that's what I look up to.
Very cool. Yeah. Steven our conversation was about right around an hour or something. And when I got done, because I've done, I had a podcast before this one, so I've literally done hundreds and hundreds of podcasts, through Zoom, in person, a lot of my first conversations with my first podcast. But there's certain people that when I'm done having a conversation with them or podcasting with them, I kind of walk away and I'm like, man, that person just has something unique, something special. Like, that was just an awesome conversation. And I kind of walked away with Stevens after our conversation with just like, man, that's a guy that I'd love to just hang out with and just pick his brain and just spend time with, because you could just tell that he's very humble. He's just a real dude, very quiet, but man, he's been in the bodybuilding game for a long time. His physique is absolutely amazing. Like, his structure, he's got that roundness and bubbly look. So yeah, I'm right with you. I really enjoyed that conversation with Steven. So let's transition. Rob, I'm kind of curious, at what age did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
So I usually announce that being around like 15 years old, end of freshman year in high school. I had just joined the wrestling team. The season was over. They had an after school weightlifting program that I wanted to be a part of. And the reason for it is, during middle school, I went to a Catholic school, so relatively like small, intimate, personal. I was just seen as like the weird kid, quiet, glasses. I have a white patch on the back of my head that's a birthmark. When you're quiet and you're new and people don't really know who you are and you're a kid, to no fault of their own, but it's just, I was a pretty easy target. Not saying I was like picked on or anything like that, or at least not to my face, but it's just like what wasn't said can sometimes hurt as much like what was said. So it was really just motivated by change and just wanting to fit in, just have people to talk to, make friends. High school was an amazing opportunity for that. And, with after school weightlifting and the wrestling team, that's just where like I got this interest sparked, and I kind of saw that this could potentially be an identity for me.
Excellent, man. Okay, so let's move into your backstory a little bit more then, Rob. Obviously, this is a fun part of each podcast for myself. Just kind of quote unquote getting behind the muscle. So tell us where you grew up. Talk about some of the sports. You already brought up wrestling, but talk about maybe some of the sports, other extracurriculars that you were involved with. You did mention you went to a Catholic school, which that's a little bit of a unique experience. So just paint that picture for us of the younger years up to about high school, and then we'll transition from there.
Okay. So we can start with Catholic school then. Just, being as though that seems to be like this core motivation, right? Coming from everything. So as I mentioned, it wasn't fantastic in regards to like a social life and like going through puberty and all that stuff, like just trying to figure yourself out. It's not that I didn't have friends, right? Like I had a friend in third grade. That's when I went to Catholic school and, survived it through. And then actually from elementary school, I had a couple friends transferring in seventh and eighth grade, which was fantastic. It was just more people, more friends, just kind of like building up that experience. But other than that, I guess what I was kind of reinforced with was like the social anxieties. People just before knowing me don't accept me, judge me, do all these things. Which, ironically enough, now that I'm a bodybuilder, I seek that judgment. I seek that acknowledgement. So that's always been like a fun, ironic coincidence, I guess you could say. So in a nutshell, that's what my Catholic school experience was. It was a fantastic school as far as like the education. I transitioned to public school in high school. I was reunited with all these people I knew from elementary school, more familiar. Granted, so many years have gone by, but it was like the hard reset in my childhood that I desperately wanted and needed. Granted, it was a little bit of a rough transition. Freshman year, somebody had been spreading rumors about me before I even got into the school that painted a negative picture. So I didn't get into fights or anything like that, but it was just kind of like like I saw this opportunity for like a great relief, and then you walk through the doors and it's like crap. I'm kind of starting with the same impression with a new crowd. But fortunately, through the wrestling team, through working out, through I used to spike my hair and have glasses, so I got contact lenses. I comb my hair down, or spiked the front of it. That's just that childhood look. But I was finally like in a new element, and I took advantage of it. I started gaining confidence in myself through working out and just seeing the physical changes. Not that they were anything impressive, so to say, but it was just again, I was just trying to find an identity. Friends were coming, social anxieties were present but diminishing, and ultimately it would be years and years and years until those really were managed better. But high school was genuinely amazing. I loved every second of it. Afterwards, I did get involved with mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, boxing, furthered wrestling. I drove to just outside Detroit, Michigan, and actually fought in a cage, which was a hell of an experience. Unfortunately, it didn't go my way. The video is actually on YouTube. I think I weighed like 160 pounds, just maybe 4 or 5 months of jiu-jitsu experience. Unbelievably fun though. Something I'm too happy I've done. And actually, as far as like fantasies, I think the only thing I'm missing is a pro wrestling match. I've been a bodybuilder. I've done amateur wrestling. I fought in a cage. I got to step in the ring and get sent through a table. So that, I guess, just kind of like briefly will kind of skim through everything, but that's essentially childhood up until I found bodybuilding.
Now, talk to me about your parents and, what was your relationship like with them? What did they kind of instill in you, or how did they kind of influence you in terms of when you were younger?
Okay. I mean, my parents were incredible. Still are, absolutely are. Always have been. Always ridiculously supportive too. Especially my mom. Mothers, I think, are just more so like the ones that have those discussions. Dad works and is a little quieter, which of course isn't a negative. That's certainly how I modeled my personality, is directly after my father. But she was one of those people that did acknowledge that when I was going through like the spiky hair, quiet glasses, all black clothes thing, just to kind of put me in check with that one, which I appreciated. Took a minute to sink in because you're rebellious, but I really never had a reason to doubt her. We've always been very close. Upbringing was a zoo, literally. My mom's a vet, unbelievably accomplished. So we had every sort of kind of animal in the house. Still do. Pieces missing, parts flying out everywhere. It's ridiculous, but it's like I couldn't have asked for anything more. Unfortunately, my father passed away a few years ago, 2018, December. When I was perhaps 2 or 3, my brother was young. He went to kidney failure. He was found passed out, nearly died, but by a good friend of my mom's actually came by, found him on the ground, called the ambulance, got him to a hospital. At the same time, I had actually gone into the hospital with pneumonia. But my father was able to get a kidney transplant. As kind of storybook sounding as it is, my mom was a perfect match. So my mom gave my dad a kidney, and it gave us, the better side of 20 years. So that was, certainly a challenge. But to get back to your question, and like their influence, they've always been supportive, certainly, of everything I've done. They weren't maybe thrilled that I wanted to get into a cage and get punched, but they supported it. It was a fun time. They told everybody about it. Bodybuilding was certainly something that they were interested in. My mom drove 4.5 hours to Lancaster, Pennsylvania to see my first show. While my father, unfortunately, never got to see me compete, he showed everyone my pictures. Everybody, nurses, doctors, family, friends, the whole deal. So I genuinely don't know that I could ask.
Very cool, man. Now, was there any other positive influences in your life from your childhood in terms of coaches, teachers, any other adult influences, or not necessarily?
Yeah, I mean, you could argue anyone in my family, honestly. Outside of that, uh, one person that comes to mind is that I got a personal trainer summer after freshman year. My grandmother set me up with that. I believe his name was Mike. Small gym, and a real cool guy. You know, just easygoing, younger dude, good shape, had an athletic look about him. Kind of as silly as it sounds, but like the one thing that stood out about me is that he had both of his ears pierced and his tongue pierced. 4 years later, I had my tongue pierced and both my ears pierced. So he directly had an influence. The personal trainer after him certainly did as well. Different personality. So relative to the gym, they certainly did. Um, Unfortunately, being in the spotlight right now, I'm just forgetting names, so I do apologize about that. But when I was younger, yes, I rest assured I did have other individuals. I mean, I could go naming movie actors, characters, Luke Skywalker, the superheroes, you know, Dragon Ball Z, those guys who, you know, just like the embodiment of like helping people, protecting people, kind of their own story arcs and transformations. Movies have always been big, in great deal due to my father. You know, his side of the family just got us on the classics: Arnold, Sylvester Stallone, Bruce Willis, all those guys. So, you know, the fantasy of movies and a fantasy of becoming that was always appealing. Granted, a bit dramatic, but you know, hey, here I am doing something rather dramatic, and I guess I'm doing okay with it.
Yeah. What's your go-to movie? What do you got, a top one, top two, top three? What do you got for us?
Yeah. So anytime I've ever asked this, there's one question, rather one movie I can always think of that, like if I had to watch on repeat forever, it's Forrest Gump. Actually, I I don't know, it does it for me. You know, it's not like this crazy macho movie. It's just here's this guy living life and just things are happening and he's kind of accidentally falling into success. Um, so I'll name that one first and foremost. Other than that, I think Empire Strikes Back is kind of a staple for anyone who's into Star Wars. Um, Pirates of the Caribbean, Lord of the Rings, all that stuff, you know, and a lot of it does play in part to relating to my dad and keeping his memory alive. Terminator.
I did not see Forrest Gump coming. That's
No, no one ever does.
good. Good.
It's a bit of a wild card, I admit, but I think that's what I appreciate about it is that people don't tend to bring that one up.
Yeah. Cool, man. Okay. So, let's talk about, what did you want to be when you quote unquote grew up? What were you thinking about in terms of a career or a job, when you were in high school? And then once you graduated high school, how did life kind of unfold, or where did life take you, post high school?
Certainly. So there's always been a balance between like realistically what I want to do and then kind of in the fantasy. I as far as the fantasy, I wanted to be a pro wrestler. I wanted to be something ridiculous like that. But in a grounded reality, I actually wanted to be a math teacher for high school. In high school, I excelled in math. Um, I helped out a lot of my friends, helped out a lot of classmates. So when I initially went into college, it was to be a high school math teacher. Um, Unfortunately, it just didn't work out like that, for one reason or another. I actually ended up switching majors and going for rec club and administration for you know, sports, gym or fitness and athletics. Um, that was, you know, as I got more involved with working out and finding that identity, wanted to be a personal trainer. All in all, nothing necessarily came to fruition. I was a personal trainer for just a little while, but it turned out to be more like a sales job as opposed to a training job. So that was a little disheartening. But eventually, I would find interest in security work, which is what I currently do. And ideally, this is what I would love to have as a career. Um, it's a very natural fit, and it gives me a lot of satisfaction in that when I was younger, people saw me as like a source of discomfort and unease, and now it's the polar opposite. They look at me for comfort, for security, for this kind of recognition about it. So as far as career and all that, that's kind of like a Sparks Notes version of it. Life after high school, going to college though, as mentioned, my father had some issues. So in December of 2012, I had actually come home from Massachusetts, where I was going to school. And it was within a few days of Christmas that we were woken up, and I think my brother found him in the bathroom, collapsed on the ground. He had gone back into kidney failure. So from 2012 until the time he passed in 2018, almost to the day, was surviving that. Not that it was a nightmare every day. He at first, it was kind of like a few months, and then he'd go back in the hospital for something relatively minor. But ultimately, as time went on, the hospital visits became more frequent. Time outside became less frequent. Complications arose, and it ended how it did. To balance it out though with positives and things I had going outside that were, certainly great for me, is that I did find bodybuilding. In 2014 is when I stepped on stage. At the same time, I got into a relationship that would ultimately lead to, a long-term relationship engagement. So I had these things that satisfied like a therapeutic need with working out, taking out the stress, working on my anxieties and my self-confidence, competing. I've done at least one show every year since 2014. Training myself. The person I was with me every step of the way, which was fantastic. So it's kind of like us against the world. While having to come home and ultimately be in the surroundings of what my father was going through rather. But again, it wasn't terrible. I know I kind of painted in a light, but it was something I can't really pretend wasn't impactful in my life anymore. I did struggle with that for a long time, and it's finally something over the last few years I can acknowledge as really having affected me more than perhaps what an ego would allow. But yes, I did have bodybuilding going on. I did have the relationship, all these wonderfully positive things going on. Changing careers, getting a better idea of that. I was working in vet medicine, actually the same facility that my mom works at, for several years. Granted, I wasn't a medical personnel. It was like a communications role in the surgery department. I got gym jobs. I continued to develop this identity of, this competitor and, this bodybuilder, and, using that as an art form, using this to express myself. Being quieter, I don't necessarily use my words, so I use action about it. Which is a little tricky when you're using bodybuilding as an action, because that can kind of come off rather narcissistic and egocentric. So a double-edged sword, certainly, but that never really bothered me, just because it was such a polar opposite experience from what I was used to when I was younger. And I apologize if I'm getting off track with anything. These are all topics I can easily dive into. But I guess just to kind of close that out, and then perhaps anything you'd like me to go in deeper. It was several months after my father had passed away, where I was going through a difficult time, just admitting I needed help, and admitting that I needed to talk about these things, get them off my chest, really acknowledge and recognize how they had been affecting me. The engagement was called off, the wedding was called off, the relationship ended. And I'll truly never be willing nor interested in saying anything negative about that person. They were a wonderful person in my life for a period of time. Family, the experiences we had, the maturity I got at. But in all honesty, as I sit here today, it genuinely could not have been a better thing for me. How my life has changed, the opportunities I've had, where I am today is truly surreal. Like I don't know that I truly accept that I've even accomplished pro status in bodybuilding until I step on that stage in less than 2 weeks, because anything could happen. Like I truly value like what I've been able to accomplish since then. I've put myself in front of the right people, between my coach, between getting a little bit of counseling a year or two ago, returning to that eventually, when I have some other things figured out. So the self-improvement that I've put myself through in just a handful of years is truly astronomical and something that I can't be more proud of myself for doing. And I'm just excited to see how that continues. You know, there's, as I told you before we started recording, like I'm just, as of even the last month, things have just been kind of coming together in this unexpectedly wonderful way. So I'm greatly appreciated for it, and I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah. And you should be excited, man, because we only live one life this side of heaven, and
Yeah.
we only have one shot at this thing. And when things are coming to fruition, when things are coming together, that's exciting for anybody. Now, I want to ask you a little bit about your dad's passing, and then I want to really get into the bodybuilding talk. But as a individual, as a man, obviously, how did you personally? You said you sought out some counseling, you had some good people around you, but when your dad eventually passed away, how did you work through that, and how did you come out on the other side to where you're at today in terms of you know, taking maybe something positive out of losing your dad, or just maybe growing, maturing yourself through your dad's passing, if that makes sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, initially, I did terrible. I'm gonna be honest with you, truly did. Um, but what was so great for myself, and of course my family, you know, like we all struggled with that together. My mom, most of all, she had lost her mom at the age of 19 due to cancer. I never met her, so less than 30 years later, here she is losing the love of her life. Um, but for myself, he did pass on his own terms. He elected to go into hospice care. Um, everybody was able to surround him for the last couple of days, and it was quick. So that's unbelievably comforting. I mean, no one knew COVID was going to happen, right? So thank God he didn't have to deal with that, and thank God it wasn't in a disgusting hospital room by himself on his deathbed, and we're just waiting for a phone call. So again, like for everything that it's worth, like terribly grateful that it unfolded the way it did. But then afterwards, as I mentioned, I did struggle. I tried to turn to bodybuilding and working out and competing and all these things, and it just certainly wasn't enough. I kept ignoring what was really the issue. My coach at the time actually was Guy Del Corso, head expediter of the NPC Northeast section, at least. God's gift to this world, as far as the personality is concerned. You know, you see the guy, and it's like his like he's like the grandpa that's not your grandpa kind of thing. Like he smiles, his freaking cheeks are rosy red. Like I can hear his voice. I can freaking smell his house as I talk about him. He was a tremendous person to be around, you know, during the experience, and then certainly afterwards. So that was wonderful. But kind of funny enough, and I do laugh at this because it's rather ridiculous. After that relationship ended and I recognized that I needed to talk about things more, I got into online dating. And I just used that as an exercise, just to talk to people I didn't know, just to share my story and see who was on board, who wasn't. It was funny. I laughed at it. I went back to school, actually. I finished up an associate's degree. One of my courses was a class where I talked about Star Wars all semester. Why not, right? So I was so sick and tired of being depressed and anxious and all these things. I just wanted to finally breathe the breath I was allowed, I guess you could say. You know, just finally relax. I got into security actually in 2019. I got a security job supervising the night shift for the hospital that my father sought a lot of treatment at. So that was very fulfilling in a very personal way. So I made all these efforts just to kind of keep his memory, to honor him, work on myself. You know, eventually I did get counseling. The app is BetterHelp for anybody who's interested, you know, perhaps to help someone out, where it's, you know, it was just a texting format for myself, but it was enough of a step to get comfortable with it. And when I do return, I'll be looking for in-person counseling, or perhaps even on the phone. just to build that interpersonal relationship. But I'm glad I opened the door with that. You know, it truly helped. The people I've met along the way has genuinely been amazing. And as I mentioned, you know, Guy Del Corso, Vinny, work experience, all these other things. Like it's just finally getting over all these excuses that I keep putting in front of myself. And I've what I've accomplished since just speaks for itself, and it's amazing.
So let's get into all things bodybuilding, Rob. So you said 2014 was your first competition. So why don't you just kind of start talking about you know, you mentioned you started lifting weights at about 15. You had some trainers. Your grandma was gracious enough to hire a trainer for you, and probably you had some sort of a foundation there. But when did bodybuilding really catch your eye? And then when did you really start moving in that direction? I mean, did you have a trainer coach right away when you got into bodybuilding? Just start unpacking that story a little bit, please.
Cool. So yeah, as mentioned, first show was almost, what is it? It'd be like 8-9 years to the day come Toronto, June 6th, I believe. Keystone Classic, NABA. No trainer, just word of mouth, doing my own research, had no idea what I was doing. Did it with a friend of mine who I worked at with a Gold's Gym not too far away from me. He wanted to do a physique competition, which initially I was going to do, but I do have, I guess, rather good calf genetics. So I figured, you know what, if I'm going to go for it, go for broke, head to toe. So trains, drove 4.5 hours, I believe, the night before, weighed in. I did the junior class because I was 23 was the cutoff, and I had just turned 23. Then I did men's novice. I didn't know how to pose. I didn't know how to do anything. It was a mess, but I ended up taking second out of 4 people for juniors and 4th out of perhaps 9 for the novice. And all I wanted to do was just be acknowledged that I fit in, and I got that. So it was like getting a rocket strapped to me. And as mentioned, every single year after that. The following year, it was the NPC Summer Classic, I believe, in White Plains, 2015. I beat an old guy. I lost to 3 young guys. So terrible. Took the rest of the year off, but then Classic Physique Division was announced in 2016. They started running that. My first classic competition was the Atlantic States in 2016. Again, I was still doing all this by myself, trying to figure it out, but making general improvements. I ended up placing 6th, which I was overjoyed with. You know, again, I was continuing to get that acknowledgement, that recognition, just for looking the part, you know, just for fitting in and getting that sense of belonging. A few months later, I ended up placing 3rd out of, I think, perhaps like 8, 9, maybe 10 guys. And that really just started giving me this confidence about it. So again, every year it was just learn, make mistakes, learn, stay humble, don't get up my own ass about it, don't feel any kind of way. Like it's not that I've ever wanted many shows. Like I've done almost 20 shows at this point. The USA's turning pro is only my 3rd win. You know, besides that, I have 2 class wins and an overall in classic from the same show. I have I apologize, 1 class win and an overall. In bodybuilding, in 2019, I got 2 class wins and an overall, and then that was it. You know, I've stepped on stage and been compared over 20 times, and I have 3 trophies to show from it. And I do love that. It kept me humble. It kept me working. I've never had a chip on my shoulder about it. I mean, if you see my face from the video where they announced me as a new pro in 1st place, nonetheless, I didn't believe it. I was in tears immediately. I cried my way back to my room. Cried after prejudging. It was like, what the hell did I do to deserve this? But I put myself in the right place with the right people. So yeah, it was just from the very first show and every show since, I just knew this was it. You know, I love it. I want to commit to it. not lose sight of a proper career, of course, which is why I continue with security. But I'm going to take both as far as they can go.
Now, when did you hire your first coach, and then when did you start working with Coach Vinny?
Sure. So the gym I'm currently at is Powerhouse Mahwah, New Jersey. It opened end of 2017, if I'm not mistaken. The very first day I walked right in, and Guy Del Corso was at the front desk. I was like, oh, I know you. I've seen him at every NPC show. He knew me right then and there. He was like, hey, you know what? Let me write you up a workout. Go for it. See what you think. Loved it. Hired him immediately. We did NPC Albany, or New York's capital, which is in Albany. Won my class in Classic, won the overall in Classic. And we did a couple other shows together. Unfortunately, that is when, you know, my father would eventually end up passing. And then I couldn't continue doing shows at that point. COVID happened 2020. I did a show down in Virginia when COVID kind of cleared up and things were opening, just to kind of celebrate making it through. You know, that home workouts, gyms are finally opening up. Drove down to Virginia, incredibly small show, maybe like 1 or 2 people per class. Took second in bodybuilding. Literally the very next day, I ran into Vinny at the gym. We had, you know, general conversation here and there. I remember seeing him the first day at Powerhouse. Somebody I was always interested in speaking with, but just, again, anxiety stood in my way and I didn't want to bother him. Because you see him and you're like, this is a freaking pro. This is the dude with the gym bag, the shoots, the shoes, the shorts, oversized shirt. Like he's the total package, right? The grizzled look. So I'm sitting in the locker room and I look ridiculous, right? Like so tan, tried to scrape it off, stupid as anything. I was like, can you train me for nationals? And he kind of looks at me, is like, you serious? I was like, yeah. We had 8 weeks to get ready. We started immediately. Only working together for 5 weeks. I don't know how he did it, but he pulled out this physique that I just never imagined. Truly incredible. And in such a short period of time, we took 3rd in Classic and bodybuilding at the Capitol in Albany for 2020. 3 weeks later, I stepped on nationals. And out of 18 guys, I placed 5th. Like, what the hell, man? Like, here I am, just like my heart sunk when I was told that there were like 20 people in the class. I was like, cool, if I get 12, I'll be happy. They called my number for top 5 and I didn't even move. I didn't accept it. But sure enough, there you go. And again, it was another reminder that through everything I've been through, I can still make things happen. I just gotta stop crying about it, you know? Granted, I cried after that, but for different reasons. And then, yeah, so Vinny and I have been working ever since. You know, we're getting ready for this show, the pro debut. He's gotten me so far, and I'm going to stick it out for as long as he continues to offer training and for as long as we can make this thing go. You know, it's such a smooth relationship we have. It's simple, it's easy, it works. It's a freaking golden ticket as far as I'm concerned.
So tell us, Rob, kind of like what your training philosophy is, or how Vinny has you training. What is your split kind of currently? What are some of the body parts that you're focusing on bringing up? Just chat with us about that for a couple minutes.
So as far as the training philosophy, I don't have anything fancy. Shut up and do it. Do it. Go for it. Here it is. There you go. That's how Vinny likes to do it. That's how I like to do it. We work on it. And it's just leave it all on the line, you know. I don't have any true expectations for Toronto other than just to simply live the experience. But I walk into the gym and I train to win. You know, winning a pro debut would be phenomenal. As far as the workout split and everything, what we really needed to focus on was bringing my lats out. They've always been a weaker point for myself. So we alternate between 2 back days every other week. My shoulders and my legs, I guess, grow at a bit of an accelerated rate, perhaps. So we only train shoulders once every other week just to have them balanced out, managed. Legs are incredibly lightweight, but just high volume. Again, naturally, they're just larger body parts for me, so I have to keep them under control, keep them for lower weight, higher rep kind of deal. But it's, especially this year, like we've completely reevaluated everything. It's just gung ho, supersets, drop sets, pause reps, negatives, beat the crap out of everything, and just watch it grow and recover. And then speaking of recovering, just making sure that's all going well. I just got a massage last weekend, booked another one this weekend, you know, just to make sure that mentally I'm feeling good, physically I'm feeling good. In regards to the diet, we pull carbs hard. I'm on day 5 of low carbs, and it's not fun. The results are cool. Don't get me wrong. It's fantastic waking up and seeing what it looks like, but it's like, oh boy, I would love an extra cup of rice or sweet potato or something. Cream of rice has been one of these like magical discoveries that I found. So yeah, we keep it so simple. You know, I imagine it's very similar to what Vinny did back in the day, what guys did back in the day. Nothing's flashy. There's no such thing as peak week. We eat our food. We see what we look like. We eat our food. The changes we make are abysmal. It's to anyone else, it would just be so boring. But to Vinny and I, it's just so simple, and that's perfect. That's what we want.
And I think the more you listen to like bodybuilders that have been there and done that on a high level, you know, through podcasts or what have you, the more you listen to those type of athletes, I think you find out that really bodybuilding is a very simple game. It's a very simple endeavor. And if you keep it simple with the consistency and intensity mixed in, you're definitely going to see results. I listen to a lot of podcasts just like yourself. And I just, again and again with training, it's like a lot. Now there's the guys that, you know, go next level with the training. But again, I mean, you brought up Dusty Hanshaw. I've heard him on his podcast talk about, he's done the same movements, you know, for years. He's found what's worked for him. He does them, you know, same split, same movements for years and years and years with that progressive overload, and it's worked, right? So I think, you know, everybody's searching for answers. Everybody's trying to look for you know, that thing that's going to put on the 20 pounds of muscle or get them to that IFBB status. But I really, the more I learn, the more I listen to top athletes and coaches, simplicity is the answer that everybody is looking for and maybe doesn't want to accept. Would you agree with that?
100,000%. I was the same way. Up until I met Vinny, I was exactly the same way. I wanted the flash. I wanted the cookies the day of, the pancakes the night before. It's just, it's exciting. It's fun. It's just not it.
Yeah. Now, do you do any coaching yourself, Rob, or have you ever thought about doing any coaching? Where are you at with that?
That's a wonderful question. I do tinker with the idea every so often. It's more so, if I'm going to take on somebody as an athlete or a client, I want to know that I'm educated. I want to know that I'm not going to waste this person's time, I'm not going to waste this person's money. If anything, I would do like lifestyle coaching, because I've got that down, right? Keep it simple, keep it going. You know, you're not trying to pull like a professional athlete out of this individual. You just want their quality of life to improve, just basic functioning, playing with their kids, getting in and out of the car, getting on and off the couch, walking. That stuff is far more appealing to me. You know, there's definitely a side of me that wants to return the favor and maybe be that coach for someone else, but I'm talking like 10 plus years down the road, you know, like model this very much how Vinny's doing it. He's the wiser, more mature athlete. He's been doing this forever. He just simply has his knowledge. It's confident, it's sound. And when I recognize that in myself, then I'll be confident to take on an athlete as opposed to just somebody who's looking to lose a little bit of weight or something of the sort. But currently, the focus is security. I love it. If opportunities come my way where I can perhaps work part-time security, still receive benefits, still keep that going, then yeah, why not? Maybe take on a couple clients, see how it is, free of charge, just test myself, learn from people. I would certainly value that. It's just for myself, I want to be at a higher standard, so to say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man. That's respectable.
Yeah.
So how did you and Vinny come to the Toronto Pro in terms of your pro debut? Why did you guys pick that show?
Yeah, this is fun. So I like a long prep. I usually expect to do about 20 to 24 weeks. Just take the first 8 weeks or so to build on everything, develop the shape, and then the remainder of the time to cut out. And that's exactly what we did last year. We started in January, aimed for the USA's, as opposed to the Universe, which is a closer national show. Things went so well that we just decided to jump into a warm-up show. I did bodybuilding at the Atlantic States last year. Doing virtually nothing, I walked on stage and took second place, which was just like my God, like this is what it's gonna look like. And then 8 weeks later, we go to the USA's. We change the smallest aspects, bring a considerably better package, and it was a unanimous first place. So with the pro debut, I'll be honest, I had thought about doing the New York Pro. It's in my backyard, it's close, it's the hometown. But when Vinny and I met this past January, and we went over things, honestly, I didn't see within myself that I'd be ready. I wasn't confident enough with it. Vinny was certainly more open to it than I was, but I said, there's a small show in Atlanta, Linda Murray Atlanta Pro, July 16th, I believe. So I was like, perfect, small show. It's a new place. Like with this pro status and this pro card, it's an opportunity to travel the world. So let me go somewhere I've never been before. Granted, Georgia's not exactly overseas, but I've never been there. So why not? Let's take advantage of it. Small show, intimate setting, perfect. As we kept checking in, however, things started looking pretty good, and then better, and then better. And it's like, I could walk into a show maybe in like 3-4 weeks. So he's like, you want to do the New York Pro? And I was like, well, no, because again, that's I have a great respect for that show. It's the people that show up there are Mr. Olympia competitors. They are the real deal, bar none. I'm just looking to make my debut here. So while there would be no room for disappointment, simply enjoy the process, I was like, well, let me take this opportunity. There's the Toronto Pros 2 weeks later. I get to travel. I get to make my debut in another country of all places. It's the biggest show in Canada. It's going to be a hard competition. It's going to be a fierce competition. But there's nothing that could go wrong. As long as I show up, I'm going to have the time of my life. I'm going to have the experience of my life. If I never do another pro show again in 10, 15, 20 years, I'll be like, you know what? I traveled to a different country. I competed in a different country. And like, Christ, like, how amazing is that? The other kind of box left to check is I want to go to Romania. I want to go over there. I don't know what's over there, but I want to find out. Go step on stage, plan that trip, and just, hey, this is my ticket. Like Vinny's the ticket to the pro card, and now that I have this pro card, it's a ticket to travel. I want to take advantage of that. The idea of making it to the Olympia stage is, of course, what I want to do, where I want to go. And I certainly train and aim for that. But there's so much more, in my opinion. There's an entire world to explore, and that's what I want to take advantage of.
So your expectation then for the Toronto Pro, your pro debut, is to win?
I want to win. With the changes in my physique, especially this year alone, and what I looked like when I did turn pro, this is a tricky one. I expect to, because I don't want to come off a certain kind of way,
Yeah.
if I'm going to make a bold statement, if I'm going to make a very bold out of character statement, I will settle for saying I expect to place in the top 5. I will say that if I don't, I will not be disappointed. I have no reason nor want to be disappointed. There's too much I'm happy about. There's too much I never thought in my life I'd be able to do with this. Do I think is there a part of me that thinks I can walk onto Toronto and win? Yes, absolutely. The improvements I've made and a number of competitors that I've seen that are going to be competing there, they look incredible. This is a pro show to be a pro show. This is the real deal. This is everything I've hoped for. Knowing what I've done, what I've accomplished, and how bulletproof every single step of this prep has been, if you're gonna sit here and like fluff my ego up, yeah, I'm gonna walk up stage. You're gonna be like, yeah, this guy won. End of story. Like, sorry guys, like he came to Canada, he crushed it. He won the USA's, he won Canada. Give me another country. You know, let's do it.
Romania, right? Off to Romania.
Yeah, Romania, exactly. Let's go over there, take it. So yes, I do believe within me, I can win the show. I would never want to come in with that attitude. The expectation, I should rephrase that, the expectation.
So we're gonna start wrapping up our chat here, Rob. Something I want to bring up and I want to discuss with you here, because it's something that you've mentioned several times throughout sharing your story, is identity. It's something that you mentioned when you were younger. It was something that maybe you were searching for and maybe you struggled to find. Do you feel like then, now that you have really kind of gone all in with bodybuilding, you're now an IFBB pro, do you feel like bodybuilding has really given you that identity that maybe you were searching for in your younger years?
It will on June 5th. When I step on that stage and there's no possible excuse I can make. There's no, well, I haven't stepped on stage yet. Well, I haven't done this yet. When I have completely beaten my own self-doubt about it, yes, I'll shut up. I'll accept it. I'll look myself in the mirror and just be like, this is who I am. This is it. I've got the card. I've got the contract. I've got this. I've been on the show. I accomplished X, Y, and Z things. Shut up and enjoy it. Just quiet the voices. And yes, then at that point, I will be able to accept it as an identity. And that's when this surreal experience will be real for me.
So what's your ultimate bodybuilding goal? I know you said you'd love to step on the Olympia stage.
Yeah.
But what do you kind of want to do outside of just stepping on the Olympia stage, which a lot of the pros that I talk to, that's kind of the ultimate goal if they haven't been there already. But what do you want to do with bodybuilding? What do you want to do with the platform that you've been given? What do you want to do with the opportunities that await, that lie ahead? How do you want to take bodybuilding and pass it on for positivity and impact and influence other people?
So very much in the same way that others have influenced me. It's a huge motivating factor for these interviews that, you know, I'm searching for. I have a story. Everybody has a story. Everybody's unique in that sense. And even if it's like the most minute detail, there's something for everyone in this. So it's really just, I want to have my persona out there. Because I mean, I'm talking on behalf of myself, who thought none of this would ever come. Which, you know, in retrospect is silly, but I understand it came from a place of anxiety, of depression, self-doubt, self-loathing, just not putting value in myself. And now that, you know, day after day after day, I'm eliminating these excuses and I can't keep arguing against myself. Like I'm hoping that there's someone else who can do the same. Somebody else who says, you know what, all my life kind of the best way to describe it is I was always seeking shelter from all my problems. I was always seeking to be in like isolated in this castle, this barrier. And all I did was create a cage. I created a prison. You know, it seemed safe, it seemed structured because that's what I wanted it to look like. And that's how I created it in my mind. And once I got over that, I understood that, well, no, get the hell out of here. Like, look at all this look at everywhere I could be right now and look at where I am not. So if there's anyone, I don't care if it's bodybuilding. I almost hope it's not. You know, it shouldn't be limited to just one industry. Like freaking anyone should be able to do this. And please do. So first and foremost, if I can have an influence on somebody, that's what it's going to be. For my own self-interests, I mean, shit, there you go. That's what it is. You know, the fun fantasy of it is, you know, if I could be fortunate enough just to find a contract, I don't want to stop working. I love security. If I could, as mentioned before, work part-time perhaps, you know, keep my part-time benefits, I'll continue to work security, gain experience. That way, when I'm done with bodybuilding, I can resume that full-time. I can have that as a career. You know, I'm not trying to put all my eggs in this bodybuilding basket. Certainly that wouldn't be the wisest thing to do. But if I can get some kind of supplemental income, you know, if it is through interviews, and guest posing would be like freaking guest posing. Like I couldn't even perceive myself being asked to do that, right? It's like, here's this no-name kid from the middle of the woods who is now going to stand on stage as like this presentation for people. Like I'd vomit. I don't know what my reaction would be, quite honestly. So for right now, it's just share myself, get people familiar with me, build up momentum. The opportunities I've received in such a short period of time are utterly ridiculous. Imagine another year, imagine another 6 months what I could do. So I'm really just trying to promote myself and, you know, hopefully drag somebody else into the light. You know, stop being afraid of putting yourself out there. Like that's been my entire life, is fear of putting myself in front of others like that. And, you know, all it took was stepping on stage, you know, in 2014, and then that kind of lit the candle, and here I am. You know, now it is. It's been a long process. It's been a humbling process. It's not without its challenges. It's not without its darkest moments. But from all of that, like I'm on cloud 9 right now. I couldn't be any happier. I will be. I will be. But as far as right now, it's like this is it. Like it just keeps going.
It's pretty amazing. You know, we all have fears, we all have struggles in life, but when we are willing to let go of ourselves and step into those fears, step into those challenges, so to speak, man, that's when breakthrough happens. And that's when we really can find ourselves or find our purpose, is you know, stepping into the fear, stepping into the anxiety, stepping into the challenges. Because if we allow all of that to defeat us, then, you know, we're gonna live a defeated life, so to speak. So Rob, I want to kind of wrap it up right there, my man. First of all, once again, thank you for taking some time out of your day to chop it up with me and share your story with all the Behind the Muscle podcast subscribers and listeners. Before I do the outro here, I want to give you kind of the opportunity and the platform to share any final thoughts, any final words that you might have. I know that you're less than 2 weeks out from your pro debut at the Toronto Pro. Any shout outs, anything else that you kind of want to, you know, wrap up this conversation by putting out there? The platform's yours, and then I will do the outro, and that'll be it. Okay.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. So I mean, first and foremost, thank you, Quentin, you know, for this opportunity. You know, just giving me your platform to put myself out there is greatly appreciated. Thank you to John from Serious and Silliness, who, you know, gave me that opportunity and I was allowed to take my first step. Obviously, Vinny, I will never properly be able to thank enough. Guy Del Corso, who, you know, got me led on this path, who brought me to my first show win. You know, outside of bodybuilding, to my family and how supportive they've been over the years and what we survived together. Lesser people may not have been so fortunate. I have a friend who I will personally thank here. Her name is Marcy, friend of mine. And she was one of the people I met after my engagement ended. And, you know, something she said to me that like really just like pierced a hole in this wall was, you know, maybe you are enough for someone. So again, kind of like one of those silly no shit comments. but it takes somebody else to say that, and it takes somebody with meaning. So I certainly appreciate that from her. Outside of that, Gabe Valdez is a close friend of mine, old workout partner. Unfortunately, I don't get to see him as much just because life happens, but he was the guy there egging me on, pushing me, let's go Superman, getting the weights up. So many. Eric Santiago was the former owner of Powerhouse Mawa. He opened that gym, and that's what I call home right now. He has a new gym. He's moved on. Best luck to him and his adventures. I could keep going on and on and on. But for the benefit of your time, I guess I'll just stop right there. Thank you to everybody I mentioned. Thank you to anyone I've ever had an interaction with. Whether it's been just a quick, hey, good job, DM on Instagram. Like I'm quieter and I don't necessarily respond to all that, but I see every bit of it. And I apologize to anyone who I may come off reserved with or cold with. It's truly nothing against you. It's just me recognizing that I can affect people in that way, I guess. And that's fantastic. Last name I'll mention now that I'm thinking about him. There's this kid, Nick Kozlow, trained with Vinny, did his first show, looked incredible. Young guy. I think he was 16 when he did his first show, perhaps he's 17 now. Genuinely good kid, young, still in high school. I'm curious to see what that adventure looks like, what he does with his bodybuilding career. As long as he sticks with Vinny, I mean, crap, he'll turn pro 10 years before he or before myself or Vinny ever did. So yeah, if you look my way, I'm probably going to thank you, to be quite honest with you. Just to get eyes and acknowledgement is truly my biggest motivator. Recognition, ultimately.
What is your Instagram, Rob? So people, if they want to follow along or they want to connect with you, they can find you on Instagram. What is that?
So vansant.ifbb. Vansant, of course, my last name, .ifbb, just to kind of keep it cheesy and on the nose. Sure. By all means, feel free to follow me there. Reach out, just patience, of course, because again, I'm not the best when it comes to response times, and just between everything I have going on currently, it's just distractions in the best way, but distractions.
All right, man. Once again, thank you so much, Rob, and all of you who are tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast. I just want to say thank you to you. Per the usual, if it wasn't for all of you who just tune in, watch, listen to Behind the Muscle podcast, the podcast wouldn't exist. I greatly appreciate all of you. As we wrap up this conversation today with Rob, if you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's really important because I release all these episodes first on YouTube, and then I'll distribute them to the other podcast platforms, including iTunes and some of the other popular podcast platforms out there. So if you want to stay up current with all the Behind the Muscle podcast episodes, make sure you are subscribed to BTM on YouTube. And then one other favor I'd ask all of you, please take this episode with Rob, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Rob, tag Behind the Muscle, so that we know that you listened specifically to this episode and you found great value in it, which I know you certainly did. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.